All right. Let me give you a fresh recap from part one. Remember, I had graduated from San Diego State right after 9/11. It was hard getting a job, couldn't even get interviews. Um, Remember, I couldn't fade labor ready. I ended up saying in a phone interview that, I just need enough money to pay my bills and put some food on my plate. Remember, Big Bro was on my helmet. And so, eventually I end up applying to some MBA programs. I get a scholarship to Clark Atlanta University. So now I'm off to Atlanta. All right. So I'm off to Atlanta, but my big sis is actually visiting from Houston. My big sis is living in Houston at the time. Her and my niece are out in San Diego visiting. And so she knows that I'm driving to Atlanta, and she's like, hey, why don't you just drop us off in Houston on the way there? Drop us off in Houston? But I'm like, fuck it. I ended up I pack up my this is like 2004. And I'm smashing in one of those 1999 Dodge Intrepids in one of them long ones. So we got a little bit of room in there. And so the back is all filled up with all my stuff. Big sis in the passenger seat, and my niece just sitting in there cramped up with all my shit in the back. And so we smashed from San Diego to Houston, and I drop my sister and my niece off, and the homie Bunyan flies in from he's in Colorado at the time, but he flies into Houston because he's gonna ride with me to Houston, from Houston to Atlanta. And so we get to New Orleans, and it's like the craziest rainstorm I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's monsoon level. It got so bad at one point, I just pulled over, man. I was like, I can't even. I'm from San Diego, homie. Like, it doesn't even rain there. We waited out, and finally it stops raining, and then it's like sunshine and shit. And so we're smashing. Bunny sleep damn near the whole time or whatever. And I think we're probably in we're either in Alabama or Mississippi, man. I like to think we were in Mississippi when this happened. And so it's like 2 in the morning, and I'm about to run out of gas. And so I see this sign that says gas next exit. So I'm like, all right, pull over and get some gas. I get off the freeway. And what that sign didn't tell me was the gas station is off the next exit, but about 5 miles off the next exit in the middle of nowhere. And, so I'm driving around trying to find this damn gas station, and I finally see it and I pull into it. And mind you, we're in Mississippi. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning. It's me and the homie Bunyan, and we're 5 miles off of the freeway. And so I'm like, all right, whatever. There's nobody there except for the gas attendant, me and Bunyan. And so I get out, and I give the gas attendant maybe like 40 or 50 bucks because I'm gonna fill up the tank. Remember, gas is cheaper back then. It's like 2004. And so I get to filling up the tank, and I get to about 9, 10 bucks, and all of a sudden it's like motherfucking Dukes of Hazard. Like, this pickup truck pulls up. It's four Dukes of Hazard looking motherfuckers, man. And I'm talking gun racks and Confederate flags and all that shit. And I'm standing out there pumping gas in the middle of Mississippi, 3 in the morning, 5 miles off the road in the middle of nowhere. And so they looking at me, I'm looking at them. They looking at me, I'm looking at them. I'm looking at Bunyan, his ass still knocked out. And so I'm like, shit. And I get to about $11, 11.53, 12.13. And all I could think is, man, this is like one of them fucking scenes of a movie where the black people in a place down south where they not really supposed to be. And that shit don't normally end well. And so I'm sitting there thinking, the fuck am I gonna do? I didn't gave this motherfucker $50 to fill up my tank, and I'm only at about $18 right now. And so I gotta make a decision. And so I'm looking over at Bunyan, he's still asleep. I'm looking over at Dukes of Hazard, they're still staring at me. I get to about 21.50, and I'm like, oh, fuck it, that's enough. I put that gas hose back up and fasten the cap to my gas tank, and I'm out. I'm like, shit, that's enough to get us to daylight. We're gonna get some gas later. That other $30, they can have that shit. And mind you, Bunyan still sleep. So he don't know. Yeah, I did. I went out like a punk. But Bunyan don't know. Nobody knows that shit. So I'm still Southeast Dago's finest. And I ain't never gonna tell anybody till this moment right now. We back on the road. I don't even know how much longer it takes. I think maybe shit another 6, 7 hours. I couldn't even tell you how much longer it takes, but we finally get to Atlanta and we in the A now. You know what I mean? The homie Black Sheezy flies in from Dago to the A to come kick it with us. The homie Juicy's already in Atlanta. And, you know, so I got the homies out there, you know, to make sure that shit was cool and just to kick it or whatnot. And homie, it was on and cracking. It was like the shit you see in videos. I mean, we was partying every day. I mean, every day. I'm doing orientation, but every night we're going out partying. I'm talking like on Tuesdays, we're hitting clubs and shit. And so the very first night we get there, it's a Friday, and we end up going to this Dave and Buster's and shit. And the homie Juicy's like, nah, we go to Dave and Buster's before we go to the actual club. This is like the pre, this is like the warm up and shit. And so we go to this Dave and Buster's. I'm like, fucking Dave and Buster's. We have Dave and Buster's in Dago, homie. He ain't tell me it was gonna be like that. Like we get there and it looked like a motherfucking ludicrous video. And so I'm like, oh shit. And he's like, nah, this is the warm up, homie. And so we go to Dave and Buster's, and from there we head back towards downtown-ish and shit. And so we go to Visions. This is my first night there. I go to Dave and Buster's. It looks like damn ludicrous video, and go straight from there to this to Visions, right? Where this is Puffy's club and shit. And so I'm like, man, it's already on and cracking. And this is how it's going down like every day for that first couple of weeks and shit. It got to the point where I'm like, man, I'm not going to be productive here. Like, how can you be productive here? You can literally go out and party every single night. All right, so the first week's over, orientation ended, and now actual school starting. And so the first day of class starts, and I walk up on Clark Atlanta's campus. And mind you, Clark Atlanta is part of the AUC, the Atlanta University Center. And so there's actually 4 HBCU campuses combined in one. I mean, when I first get up there, it's early in the morning, so it's not a whole lot of people there. And so I'm in class with my classmates and shit, doing what we do. And when I come out of class, all of a sudden it's kind of like the let out. It's like in between classes when everybody's just kind of walking around hanging out. And homie, it was like motherfucking different world plus school days plus whatever else you could think of and shit, man. Like I was like, man, this is what I came here for, man. This was the experience I was hoping for. And so, you know, me and the homie Artie, we used to just be sitting there, we go to class, be hanging out, just soaking in all the fucking culture and just all the fun, man. It was all new to me. And so I was just loving it. You know, there's a strip, they call it the promenade. And that's where, you know, you just be kind of hanging out in between your classes and shit, maybe during lunchtime or whatever, and just, you know, just chilling. You know, we just be out there kicking it, me and the homies and shit. And it's like that Bobby Valentino video, slow down. You know, a couple weeks go by, I start getting into the groove of things and shit, and I start feeling like, you know what, I actually really found my place. You know, I started feeling really comfortable with where I was at. And then I saw her. Slow down, I just wanna get to know you. And I was like, that's the one. So check out part 3 so you can see how much game I had when I first met Chinyerai. And then I'm going to tell you the rest of the Atlanta story.